All right, so strings, dealing with strings. One way to learn coding is to look at how someone else solved a problem. And we have this problem discussed in the book, and I'm going to just walk through their code, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen and kind of take notes on it as I walk through it. If you have the book, we're looking at the example problem and the focus on problem solving 9.7. So we're looking at this problem that they gave us in the textbook. Now I can't save this as a PDF and scribble on it, but I can save the code. But let's take a look at what we want to do here in the explanation of this problem. And think of, how would I solve the problem? We're given test scores in this format. And we're given on multiple lines. Now let's not assume that we only have 5 scores on each line. Let's assume, okay, we're going to have a line of numbers separated by commas. And what is our job to do with this? Let's say what we need to do. It's Dr. Harrison that accesses them, exports data. I'm assuming we want to get statistics about the scores. I'm guessing we're going to get the highest score, lowest score, maybe even graph the curve for the test. You might have left that up to the students, go as far as you can. We don't know yet about how to graph lines, but we could do a old school text kind of graph. But first of all, we'll just kind of toss that out as a possibility as we think about the solution or the problem that our customer here, Professor Harrison, is suggesting. We know we're going to have the data. Not having to read from an Excel spreadsheet, that would be a whole nother step of, could I read directly from the spreadsheet? It is possible, but that's a whole nother level of programming, figuring out how to talk to an application that's running and read what it has in its current spreadsheet. It is a possibility, but a lot of hurdles along the way. Let's just assume that they're saving this data to a text file. All we have to worry about is going back into our toolbox and figuring out how to open a text file and read it line by line. I could actually I think there's a way just to read the entire text file and treat this whole thing as one string. Often though, I want to be thinking that maybe it's a huge text file and maybe I don't want to read the whole thing into a big memory buffer. I usually think to myself, I'm going to read one line at a time. Let's see how they do it. That's another thing to do when you're learning coding. Look at a problem, think how you might solve it. You might be fuzzy in particular areas. But then look at how a smart person with coding experience may have solved it. Okay, so here's our data. We're going to have to open a file, but then as we read it, we're going to have to do something with that string. And here's the code listing. I'm going to open that up in my I'm going to open it up in Edge so I can scribble on it with my pen. So I'm going to zoom in on that, and walk through this code that's going to read my file. Is this the one? This is the second one. We're going to go to the other one. Let's see here. I'm going to look at this source code first. Scribble on this. So this is the test score reader. This is what reads in the information from our file. And I'm going to draw on this with the red pen. And so let's walk through this code. Thank you very much. Walk through this code. And my pen works. Yeah. Walk to this code here. Okay, so I'm going to be reading from a file. That's why I need this. This is for file reading. This is for regular input from my user. Input. Now, I'm not sure where they're going to ask for input. We'll see what they do down later. I suppose no, we'll find out what they do for input. So, and now as we scroll down through this file, we're going to read the test scores. They call them tokens from a file. Just think of that as, yeah, we're reading strings from a file. And, oh, we're calculating the average of each line. I'm not sure why average of each line is useful at all. I'm thinking, I don't care about the average of each line. I want the average of all my students. But we'll see how they do that. I would rather do average of all. Why not? Write down here, why not all? You better do all at the end. Average of each line might be interesting as I go. Like you can say, oh, if they go by their location in the classroom or something. Okay, so here's the class, and I'm going to be reading from the file. Remember that's that CSV file. And remember the numbers are going to be separated by commas, 1, 2, 3. Here I'm going to be reading one line at a time, it looks like. So yeah, it looks like they're planning to read the file one line at a time. That's the way I would be doing it. Although I know in the back of my mind, I could read the whole file to one big long string. Okay, so here is the constructor. Yeah, he put some comments in there. There's our constructor. It takes a file name, so the file that's going to be read. Now, one question I have in mind, does that need to be the full path? Where is this file going to reside? This is something that happens if we write this in Eclipse. If we just have the name of a file like data.txt or something, in Eclipse, where your program is running is expecting, if you don't have any path in front of it here, it's expecting to find that in the same location as your, I believe, as your source or as your project. And that's something that we'll have to figure out in Eclipse, is where this has to reside. Otherwise, I'm going to have to figure out putting the full path in my file name. But we'll just, I think if you did this on a command line, the data would have to be right in the same location as your Java program. But in Eclipse, we have a whole arrangement of files for us. We'll have to make sure we know where to put that data file. So that's something we'll do a little exploring on if we do this in Eclipse. So we have a file, and notice we've assigned it our new file. Our input file is ready to read. So here's our file to read. Now you should have put comments here on. This is the file. Open this file, and this is what is line? The input file is, well, it looks like the line's going to be, what is it? What is line? That's going to be one line at a time. That'll be a temporary variable. Now, one thing, as I look at this code right here, where is line used? Let's just take a look. Where do we use the line variable? I see in read next line, he checks to see, is there more data to read? And then, if there is, then I put what's read into this line variable. Okay, so I see he uses line here in the read next line method. He decides to write a separate method for reading a line. And then later on, when he's getting an average, he goes and reads the average of that line he just read. And gets an average of the latest line read. Okay, so I'm seeing here he gets the average of most recent line read. I get it. All right, and then he's done. Close the file. Okay, so a general overview of what his code does. Now let's walk through his thinking. I don't think I would be doing it this way myself, but this is how the author decided to show the solution. It's a valid solution, but I wouldn't have thought to read a line and get the average of each line. But let's see how he does it and understand his approach to this problem. So he's got the constructor, opens the file, assigns it to a global variable or a class variable file, and then assigns my input file to be this new file that I just opened. So I have a temporary variable file inside this method. This is what gets stored into my class. Input file, remember that is my class variable input file. That's available now to all the other methods. One thing he forgot to put here is any error checking, right? What if there were a problem reading that file? I'm assuming there is no problem reading it. There should probably be, I might put a little note to myself to do, you might want to do some kind of error check. What if the file fails to open? Well, he's just assuming I have a file. Nothing down here checks to see whether or not there was a problem. And we'll be doing more of that as we go to future chapters. There should be an error check. But like we do in a lot of programs, in the simple approach, let's assume there's no problem reading the file. Then we'll come back and add error checking. And if you buy programs, you will find that sometimes they crash because those programmers never went back and did the error checking. Your program will just crash or get some crazy errors. Okay, now let's see. Oh, this one actually does check to see if there's a problem. So let's see how they handle that. This is a true or false flag variable, determine whether there's more to read. So we'll see what he means by flag variable. All right, so this checks to see, is there more data? That's what that comment goes with. Determine whether there's more to read. So a method for the file that we've seen in previous chapter, but of course we may have forgotten that to know whether there's something or I'm at the end of a file, this is a nice function to check. Before I ever try to read from a file, check to see that has next is true. Another way to do it is, I don't know if Java has this, but I know in other languages you can check to see if I'm at the end of file. EOF, end of file, is a flag as well, and I could check to see if Java has an end of file marker. But has next is just as good because it will turn true or false if there's something more to read. Okay, so if it does have next, I jump to here and I read into that class variable. Now I could have, in my code, to make someone make it clear to everyone that this is a class variable, I could have said this.line. That's equivalent to line equals. And I only know that because I remember at the top that I had line as my class variable up there, a private class variable. Why does my scroll bar not scroll up? There we go. Okay, so it reads a line and it returns line read. Now I don't like this variable name. Remember, this is true or false. It's not returning the line, it's returning true or false. Let's see how line read is a Boolean. And we've declared our function returns true or false. Now, it has this throws IO exception, but we never see anything about IO exception. We're letting the reading of a file, we know that that throws an IO exception, but we're not doing any error checking of our own in here. Now, this is the part where the professor says we need to get an average. Now remember, we're only getting the average of the last set of scores read from the file. So that means we read a line of data. So I can see that if I'm going to use this class called test score reader. I'm going to call test score reader read line, get average, read line, get average, read line, get average, until read line returns false, right? Because read line or read next line is going to give me the new line. One thing also to note here, when I read a line, I don't do anything with it. I simply put it in the variable line. I'm not separating out the information from with the commas in there. That's going to happen in get average. So get average, something that they probably could have written here is expected line, right? Line has valid data. That's what we're expected to be true when we get into here. Let's see, do they check to see that? Look at that. They just immediately do a line dot split. Line might be an empty string. We don't know what line is. But split is fairly flexible from what I have used it is, remember what split quote comma does. Remember we have our string. Our line is going to look something like this. 18, comma, 20, comma, 30. Line dot split takes this string and turns it into an array of strings that looks like this. 18, 20, 30. This is tokens, is what they're calling this array of strings. Remember, that means that's an array of strings. Array. So now that's going to become tokens 0. That will become token 0. This will become tokens 1. This will be tokens 2. So however many lines there are, or sorry, however many pieces of data there are, will be another item in my tokens array. Very handy method in the wrapper class, in the string wrapper class, done for us. Now we come to this part. Remember, this is the same as doing for int I equals 0, I is less than tokens.length, I plus plus, and then look at tokens bracket I. This is a nice shorthand way of saying this stir is going to take on the value of each of the items in the tokens array. So total first time through the loop is going to be equal, stir first time through is going to be equal to that number 18. Second time through this loop, it's going to be 20, 30. So great way, if you know you have an array of any particular type, string temporary variable stir, it's going to take on each of the items in the tokens array. And since I have that format, I don't need to build my own for loop and have the index and all. But if you like for loops and don't remember this, go ahead and do your for loop. But what are we doing now? We're taking a total that we have declared up here as an integer. I would have declared it as a double, but they're doing a integer. If we're expecting integer scores, it's perfectly fine to be using an integer. They can come very high. I am incrementing or adding to the total the value of the string that's converted to an integer using the wrapper class integer, taking a string, trying to interpret it as an integer. I can't just do this. This will give me an error. I can't say total plus equals stir. Java will say You're giving me a string. I can't add a string to an integer. Other programming languages like PHP, I think Visual Basic may do this, will automatically do this for you. It's called implicit typecasting, where if you're trying to treat something like a number, the programming language itself will say, oh, you must mean I want to treat this as a number. I'll do the converting for you. With Java, we can't just do this. It will not work, even though to us it seems to make sense. Yeah, treat that as a number. No, you have to explicitly say, turn this string into a number, and then I can add it to a variable that is declared as an integer. This is called a strongly typed language, meaning we have to tell the compiler, this is an integer, you're only allowed to hold numbers in here. I have a string here, I must explicitly convert it to an integer and then add it. So every wrapper class has a parse typically. One thing to remember about this parse, if I've given it a string like ABC, parse int is not going to give me a runtime error. It's going to say, oh, I can't convert that to a string. I'll give you a 0. If I can't convert it to a string, parse int will say, sorry, I'm giving you 0 value of an integer. You can generate an error and process it, but parse int will handle that for us normally. Okay, so now that we've added the total, as we've read through each number, what do? Well, we're calculating and saving into the average variable, making sure I produce a double total divided by totals.length. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, turn total into a double and then divide by however many there are. That will give me the average. If I hadn't put double in front of here, I would have done integer division and thrown away the decimal portion. But this makes sure we do double arithmetic. When I divide any double divided by an integer, I get a double back. So double on top divided by an integer, the result is a double number that I can save an average. Java will let me take an integer and assign it to a double, and it won't complain. It'll say, oh, I'm automatically turning that integer, saving it into a double variable. Going the other way, though, trying to save a double into an integer, it will complain. Say, sorry, are you sure you want to do this? You're losing precision. Now we return the value of that average. Now if I were writing this code, I would have skipped the part about needing an average variable, temporary variable, because you see how average is used? I declare it here, I calculate a value here, and immediately return it. I probably would have just written return this calculation. Then I don't need an extra variable to declare. This just makes that code, I suppose, a little easier to read, maybe easier to debug. I could have a breakpoint here and see what did I calculate as I'm checking for errors. But I don't have to declare variable average. I could just say return this calculation. I could have put a return right here. And so if I were writing it, I might just overwrite here and say, okay, I'm just going to say return that. Notice I'm not doing an error check for, hey, if I somehow for some reason I had a 0 length array because the line was screwed up in some manner and I got no tokens back, I would get this has a possibility of a runtime error. So again, to do check for 0 before doing this divide. This is a danger. Whenever I see I'm dividing by something, think to yourself, is it possible that I would ever have a 0 here? If you get zeros in a divide, bad math runtime error. You don't want your program to do that. So we are skipping error checks in this code. And when I'm done, there's the close. I close my file. I'm done. So now this is showing us the class that I would be using, but I haven't yet seen how I would actually test that this is all working. Let's take a look at the code. Here's now how I would use this to test that this score reader class is actually working. Let's get the drawing thing here working. Draw. All right, so here's I have a main. So what are we doing here in main? I have a student number. I read from grades.csv. And remember how it only reads a line one at a time, gets the average of each line? Read next line. Oh, look at that. While this is turning out, while this is true, I'm going to do this loop. So while there is a line to read, it's going to go through this loop here. So I read, I have read one line, and I haven't calculated the average yet for it, but read next line, reads the line. It has already opened that file because this is where I did the constructor, open the file. And to get the average, this time I have my own average variable here in my main. The average for that line, remember that's just one line. I print the average for the student on that particular line. So student number, looks like it starts at 1 and then increments each one. So basically the number is the same as the line number in the file. That's what's happening. It's starting 1, and each line, it just increments that by 1. And that goes back to our problem definition of each line is the student's scores. So that student number 1, here's his average calculated on that line, and then increment. He is not calculating the class average. He's just getting the average for each line, and each line is representing the total, the scores for that student throughout the course. Increment student number. If there's more to be read, get the average of that line. Remember, notice this is reading the line and returning true or false, whether or not there was something there. So this does two things. Tells me there is a line that I got, and line has been stored in the class line variable. So then this will give a valid number. That was just one example, reading through somebody else's code, even though I may not have written it this way. I can see how this is working now, just carefully walking through the code. Now, how about I give you a little help on your one little homework problem. Where did that go? Remember this problem? We got this thing done last time, the Pig Latin. How about counting the sum of digits in a string? I'm going to give you a little help with this. I don't think I'm going to give you all the code though. Some help though. Copy that because that's going to be my comment to that method. And go to my Eclipse that I still have open down here. This is where I tested, or this is the definition of the Pig Latin one that we did last time. And then the solution test starts with a string and converts the information to a Pig Latin. So I'm going to put here system.out.println. What was that problem? Solution to problem 15. Proof of solution. Okay, so that's problem 15. Now, we're going to have, since I want to do it in the order listed in the assignment, I'm going to have some solution test. I'll call this proof of solution. What is it? Problem 9. I'll call it 9. Digits in a string, right? Digits in a string. This was solution to problem, what was it? 1, backwards string. So let's put that here. 1, solution, proof. All right, you're going to have to help me here. What do we do for solution 9.9? I'm going to think about how I would be solving the problem, and then I'll go write the solution code. How about that? Let's think about digits in a string. We're going to have a sum of digits. So we're going to have some string, and then we're going to call sum of digits and print the results. Okay, so let's say this. Let's do string. Well, we do have a string up there, stir. Let's say stir equals 1, 2, well, what is their example? 2514. Let's do the same one. 2514. I'm going to be calling problem solutions dot sum of digits. So even though the code isn't there, I'm going to pretend it's there. I'm going to do system, this is the plan, dot out, dot print line, sum of digits, and it's going to print out, concatenate out, problem solutions dot, well, I don't have piglet, I don't have sum of digits. Oh, actually, I did write the template for it. I'm going to be printing out sum of digits. I have not yet written that code, though. This code does nothing yet. Let's go take a look at problem solutions and see what code would have to go into here. I've written the placeholder for it, but now I need to finish the code. I've left a comment here telling me what I need to do. So, what do you think I need to do? Propose a solution. We can write it in pseudocode in comments, and then we can write the Java code. What do you think? Remember, we're considering them to be single digits. We're gonna, it also says we need to write a max digit and min digit. Oh, well, we won't worry about that. We'll do the sum of digits first. Is this enough to tell us how to do the solution? Kind of help me out here. String S has my digits. How do I know how long string S is? I'm hearing crickets. I'll give a proposed solution, or at least get started. I'm not expecting you to be the code expert. What kind of a loop do we need to use. Let's answer that first question. How many digits are in the string? Remember, we're considering it a one-character digit. So it's the same as s.length. But remember, it goes to get a char of a string. I can do s.charat will give me the string at any position n. I'll call that the digit at position n. But that's just a char. How do I get to treat it? How do I treat it as a number? I need to somehow convert it to an integer. Well, at least let's get the loop going. I think we can do something like this. My favorite for loop for int I equals 0. I is less than s.length. Empty parentheses. I plus plus. That will at least let me see each character in my string s. But how do I turn the character at position I into an integer? I could try this. I'm going to do L sum plus equals s dot char at index I. It's not complaining. It's not telling me I have to convert that to an integer. If it'll take that and actually give me the accuracy, I'm not going to worry about parsing it into a digit. We'll see if I get the right answer. Is it that simple? Let's find out. Save this, Control S, solution test. It's complaining about something. I've got a red somewhere. Where's this? It's saying I have an error somewhere. I see a little red up here. Oh, it says I have an error over here. Here's red here. I'm not. Oh, it says there's a problem on this line. Oh, look at that. Forgot the semicolon. Tiny little red squiggle. I could hardly see it. Let's save. Now let's see. Do I get 7, 8, 13 as my answer here? Let's find out. Let's open my Explorer. I can run it, or I just click the run button. And sum of digits is 204. Does that look like the right answer? Nope, wrong answer. So there's a problem with that sum of digits, or the problem solution, sum of digits. Although it isn't giving me an error at this line, this is giving me the bad answer. I need to convert to a number. Now, if I don't remember, I can go back to either my textbook and look for converting of characters to a number, or I can go to my internet and do Java convert char to int. And Java tutorial point, the first hit, I can get an ASCII value, but I want to get the actual converting to the integer, and I see that in order to treat it as an integer, I have to do integer.parseInt of that character. So let's go back, and instead of, this is annoying me, instead of just giving, basically, this gives me my ASCII value, which may be actually useful at some point, but I don't want the ASCII value. I want the integer.parseInt. And what I want to parse is the character at that position I. So integer.parseInt comes to save the day. What's the problem? It doesn't like to parse a character. It wants a string there, but this isn't a very helpful, it's not a very helpful error message. What this is telling me is it's expecting a string as a parameter, but it's getting a char. It doesn't have convert a char to an integer. It only knows how to convert a string to an integer. And you can stare at this and search, and then in somebody's code you might find here is an easy way to convert or to treat a char as a string. May seem like a crazy solution. Watch this. 2 double quotes concatenate to a character and it's happy. Isn't that crazy? To convert this to a string, all I have to do is concatenate it onto an empty string. And now this is a valid string. It won't take a char, but this means, okay, if you concatenate it onto a string, it'll become a string. And now integer parseInt is happy. Now let's see if we get the correct answer. We're going to do a parseInt instead of lsum plus equals s.charat. So I'm going to put a little comment here. Lsum plus equals s.charat, position I. What I'm doing is wrong. It adds the ASCII value to lsum. It will not complain, but it's not giving me the parsing of it, treating it as a integer digit. Now let's see if we get the correct answer. I click run. Sum of digits is equal to 12. I actually should probably say sum of digits of what is equal to 12. Let's go back to our solution test and say sum of digits of, and then I will stir, and then I will say equals, oh, I forgot to put the plus. Now it's going to show the solution. Sum of digits of this string that I gave it is equal to 12. So 7 plus 1 plus 4 gives me 12. I say 13 before. Now let's run and confirm. Yep, sum of digits 2514 equals 12. Now I haven't given you the solution to the others. I'm going to let you figure out. Let's see, I have comments along the line here. More comments than code, which is just fine. It does say, though, don't skip this part, write max digit and min digit to display the highest and lowest digits in a string. I'm just going to help you write the template for max digit and min digit, and I'm going to leave it up to you to do something very similar, but finding the max and min instead. Let's write the template for max digit. It's going to be a utility, and I'm going to display the highest and lowest digits in a string. I'm going to have it return the highest digits. So let's do public static it's only going to be 1 to 9. I guess I'll make it long. max digit. That's max in string S. I like S instead of str. Your choice. And comment return largest digit. Yes. Just to remove any red, so I can have a, I'll call it L max equals, let's see, well, the smallest digit will be 0. There's going to be some looping to do, and I'll do return L max. Here, some loop. That's up to you to write that loop. Min digits is going to be very similar. Let's go ahead and copy, paste. Change that to min digit. Change that to Lmin and return Lmin. After I do some sort of loop to find the largest digit and the smallest. We are assuming S to be a string of only digits. This is for you to do. I'm going to leave this for you. I think you can do it. You can see this example of how I get at each digit. This will give me a digit at position I. So I could use this very same loop, but instead of adding to sum, I could find out, is this digit larger than the last one I read? So since I am going to do a loop through the string, I'm going to suggest this loop, but we're not going to do this. We're going to do something different. Write the code, check to see if this digit, or I'll call it the character at position I, is smallest, or yeah, is largest, larger than current largest. If so, largest becomes current digit. I'm not going to write the code for you there. You're going to have to figure out what code goes here. Same thing here, but I would get this code working first, and then it's just a little bit different for the loop to check, is it the smallest yet? What I've read is the smallest. Now, here, I don't think I want to set Lmin to be 0. I'm going to set Lmin to be 9 at first. If I find something smaller than 9, then I'll return a new min. If I set min to be 0 right away, well, there's nothing ever going to be smaller than 0, so I might get the wrong answer. So I'm setting Lmin to be 9, or I could set Lmin to be my first digit. That's probably a better answer. Let's set Lmin at the start to be integer .parseInt empty string concatenated with s.char at. Now I know min begins with the value of the first digit. If it ever gets smaller, I'm going to do that testing in the loop. With max, I could also do the same thing here. But starting max to be 0, that's a valid place to start to. But I could do this with max. Let max be the value of my first digit. If I ever find a larger digit, set max to be that. I will stop there, but I am expecting in your fine code to be the solution to this. I've helped you with a lot of the others, so your grade and your on this assignment, I'm going to be primarily looking at your code here where you have to do this work. Since in class we have given you the solution to the others. It's going to get harder, but I'm kind of helping you through this one, talking through the code, giving you the solution. It's up to you to solve this and then solve harder problems. You guys have been quiet today. I will, it has recorded, you can go back and look, but I'll leave it to you to solve that. And I initially had Monday as a break, but I realized I had the break in the wrong place. So we do have class on Monday. And if you have any questions about the solution, feel free to send me an email. Have a great day.
Have a good day, Professor.
Oh, there is somebody out there. The first time I hear, I know you're kind of shy, suggesting a solution in the middle of it, kind of scary. We'll be doing more of that. Have a wonderful day. And I will end the recording.
Yeah, we were 7 miles.